The inferior status of agriculture is one cause. Because agriculture itself, if you study economics, you know that agriculture sector itself is to some extent inferior to industry. Because of production, marginal production to labor, marginal products to labor will decrease with increasing number of employment, increasing number of people, given a fixed number of land, right? But for industry, you don't have this constraint, and the capital can be accumulated to whatever level you want to have. And so this is in terms of the input factor, and in terms of output, the demand for agriculture goods is limited, and the demand for industry goods is almost unlimited. So we have desire to different kinds of industry goods. When you have a laptop, you want to have, for example, when you have normal mobile phones, you want perhaps an iPhone, and then you have an iPhone, you want an iPad or something like that. So your desire to those industry goods is almost unlimited. But for agricultural goods, it's almost limited. So you only have one stomach, and then you can eat whatever you want to eat. But so rural agriculture sector cannot get rich or cannot have a very, very high share here. So there is a nature gap between urban and rural, or between industry and agriculture by itself. But this gap shouldn't be as big as what we observe in China, although there should be a gap. So now we say policy distortions. We'll study this one in 3 steps. So I will perhaps skip this part because we already talked about it. Okay, and I will focus a little bit on development strategies of the pre-reform period. In the pre-reform period, in the introductory slides, we've talked about it already. It mainly says this: when China wants to become industrialized, you don't have funds for industrialization. You don't have funds to support those heavy industry sectors. So what you do is to tax. This is the same not only for China but for many developing countries. So you tax agricultural sector and then subsidize urban industry sector in order to get necessary capital that you don't have. So this, in a pre-reform period, increased urban-rural divide. Okay? They were able to do so because of the introduction of the whole system. So in a reform period, still it is growth orientation in the reform period by the government. So, for example, price controls at a very early stage, although it was gradually relaxed, but the tax on rural agriculture sector was not lifted until 2003, 2006. So only during this period, the tax became less regressive in terms of urban and rural. So up to this time, they were still taxing rural people heavily. So rural people on average has to contribute roughly 20% of their overall income as a tax and fees to the government, to different levels of government. And then most urban people pays nothing because their wage is lower than the income tax benchmark. So they don't pay anything. So this rural agriculture tax was abolished in 2003 to 2006. Well, and okay, so we want to talk about something on income inequality, inequality in opportunities. As we cite, now inequality in China was not caused by nature, not largely caused by nature, was largely caused by the distortion of government policies. But if we want to rephrase this discrimination, we can say that we can call this as inequality in opportunities. Basically saying many rural households has been discriminated against, and then they were discriminated for access to opportunities. So what we mean by opportunity, we mean opportunity not only access to education, access to employment, but also, in a broad sense, we mean all the things that you cannot control. So for example, you have the opportunity that we can classify as an effort or the opportunities that you can, society can offer you. But in this case, we have a huge divide in opportunity. I can give you an idea if you want to read in details, perhaps go to the paper, and also there are some paper on opportunity inequality. So we can talk about this later on, but because of the time constraints, I'll just present you this figure. This is income Gini coefficient in China. Remember the first table that I showed, and then this is in line with that table. So now you can say Gini coefficient has been increasing overall, but look at this opportunity Gini coefficient. Although many people want to criticize the method that they use, this opportunity Gini was done, but more or less you can say this opportunity Gini has very high correlation with this income Gini. The Gini coefficient, the income Gini coefficient was driven by, or at least correlated with opportunity Gini. Of course, from this table we see correlation, but by theory you can establish a kind of causation. To say a large proportion of this income inequality was driven by this inequality in opportunities. So people not given equal opportunities. It's not a plain field for people to compete. So you are being discriminated, restricted, and then they leave you to not compete. So because of that, we argue that there is a mechanism there for China to achieve efficiency and equality simultaneously. As you know from the literature, you can see there is, by many people, they claim that there is a trade-off between inequality and efficiency. So for example, in most of the developed world, if you want to emphasize equality, you have to sacrifice efficiency. This theory, most of you must be aware of this, yes? Yes? So there is a trade-off between the two, especially in developed world. For example, okay, there are many theories you can say, but in China, we want to argue that they don't necessarily face such a trade-off because of the opportunity. Because when you improve opportunity, you will not necessarily hurt efficiency. So, firstly, how can this be done? You can do this by breaking the so-called virtuous circle of various traps. For example, education trap. In rural areas, I'll just use education as an example. In rural areas, the returns to education is very, very low. It's very low overall in China as compared to most of the developed world, but it's extremely low in rural areas as compared to urban areas because of the quality, because of the low quality of education, because of the high cost. So the return is low, the cost is high, so that this puts many people off. So many people don't want to enter university, or they cannot enter university. So by doing so, they put themselves into a lower skill track. So they don't have higher education, they cannot live themselves out of this vicious circle. So they end up with